Hi YouTube, I normally sculpt lots of weird creatures and things from movies, but they take quite a long time to do. So sometimes when I'm feeling in a sort of a crafty, creative mood, but I want to do something a bit quicker, I'll do a project a bit like this. So you can see I've got these bits of plywood, just kind of junk bits of leftover plywood really, and I thought this would make quite a good panel, and I've got loads of bits that I've been collecting for years like this. Just a big pile of junk which I've kept in a box. It's bits from, inside various things that I've taken apart. Just bits and bobs basically chucked in a box. And I knew one day I would be able to get them out and make some use of them. So if you want to have a go at a similar project, you can either use super PVA glue or you can use flooring PVA glue, which is really strong as well. You can see here I've just slapped a load on, and this is going to just attach my four boards together using this other little bit of plywood. And I'm not worried about the other join bits because they'll all be joined with all the bits that I'm going to stick on. You can see I'm going to be just really kind of doing this roughly. So I'm just going to slap the glue on as quick as I can. I'm not fussed if a lot of glue kind of blobs everywhere. It will all kind of add to the effect. It's all going to be painted in the end anyway. This is what I love about this kind of project, is you just have a vague idea of what you want to do. You don't plan it too much. You have some bits and bobs and then you just start doing it, and basically it all kind of evolves as you're doing it, and you're just trying to be as fast as possible really. I've always liked these bits of circuit board. I mean, you can find them in anything that you take apart that's electric, TVs or computers or anything really. They're really quite easy to find, and then they actually look really good as they are. In this case, though, we are going to be painting over them, but I quite like all the green colour and all of the little microchips and bits and bobs, capacitors and things that are on top of them. But yeah, anything, we're just looking for texture. So panels like that are perfect because they cover big spaces quickly. Little bits like this are good as well because again, that instant texture. And you can add layers and layers of texture onto this. I'm basically just going to do it so that I fill the board as quickly as possible. But then you can always re-look at it as well. And if there are any bits that look a bit bare, you can just add extra bits into those areas as well. You can be as detailed as you want with this. If you've got nowhere near as much stuff as I've managed to collect, you could just make it a bit sparser. You'll still get a good effect. I think what I'm trying to do is get an overall evenness about where I kind of place everything. So rather than putting all of the computer panel bits right next to each other, I've tried to kind of spread them out a bit, and then I can put other textured bits and bobs in between them. And I just kind of do this, again, no planning, I just stick a bit on, choose another bit, stick it on, and just as I go, just try and place them so that I'm getting interesting overall kind of effect. This flooring PVA glue is really, really tough stuff. When it dries, it is very strong, but it takes quite a long time to dry. So I'm fully aware at this point that I'm going to be needing to leave this overnight for the glue to dry fully. It's nowhere near obviously as fast as super glue or something like that, but it's way, way stronger than super glue. And that's what I love about it, is once it's on and once it's stuck, things aren't going to fall off. So this is what it looks like with all my bits on. I think I kind of pretty much ran out of decent bits at this point. You can see though, if I had more bits and more time, there are lots of little gaps here and there where I could go back and I could add way more onto this. And even on some of the actual bits that I've stuck on already, where there are flat surfaces here and there, I could add more bits onto those as well. So you could really kind of layer it up. But I think this is going to be enough to give me the kind of effect that I'm looking for on this particular project. It's a really good idea if you're into doing craft type things to keep everything. Basically, don't chuck anything away because you'll find one day everything will be useful and you'll just regret throwing it away. So my shed is absolutely full of boxes of bits and bobs that I know will be useful one day. Right, you can see this is what the panel's looking like with all the bits on. And I actually really quite like it the way it is. I know though that I'm going to be painting it, and it kind of seems sad in a way to paint it when you look at it like this and you think it's already looking quite good. But I have this idea in my head of what it's going to look like when it's all painted up. And I know I'm going to have to go through a stage where it looks worse before it looks better, because the initial stage after this is to paint it all entirely black, which will kind of deaden the effect initially, because black, as you know, has this way of kind of like fading into the background, so everything will not look like it's kind of standing out as much as it does now. Incidentally, there are ways of filling in these extra gaps without having to find a lot more bits. You could use, for example, string or wire, that kind of thing. If you just got yourself a whole load of string or wire, you could very easily just start filling in a lot of the gaps and get a lot more texture really quickly and really cheaply. Right, I'll show you what it looks like painted black, and you'll see what I mean about it sort of deadening the effect. It does flatten it off quite substantially, but I know all the detail is still there. It's just harder to see because it's black. So although at this stage I kind of looked at it and went, oh, it's not as good as it was, it doesn't matter because I know it's going to end up good in the end. You've just got to be patient sometimes. It's like with a lot of sculpting, quite often you have to go through stages where it looks really bad before it ends up looking good. You just have to have faith that it's going to end up looking okay. So I just used black System 3 acrylic paint to paint that. Very thick, straight from the tube basically. And then what I've done here is now dry brush it with, again, System 3 acrylic paints, but this time I've used like a rusty orange colour. So I think I used a bit of yellow ochre mixed with some orange, cadmium orange, and maybe a bit of brown as well, a bit of burnt umber mixed in there. And that gives this nice sort of rusty colour. And you can see what I've done is just, yeah, like I say, dry brush. If you haven't done dry brushing before, you take your paint, nice and thick, put it on your brush, and then you rub it on a bit of kitchen paper until there's hardly any paint left on your brush. And then you just kind of, with downward sweeps, drag your brush over all the surfaces. And you can see it just highlights all of the raised areas, and it leaves all of the bits that are kind of deeper still black, so still really dark. So they look shadowy and like they are a lot more hollow, and it's just the raised bits that collect the paint on them, and it really starts to look like highlights. Now you could use any colours you want for this. You don't even have to use black initially. You could use any kind of dark colour of your choice, and then you could use any bright colour for doing all of this dry brushing. Now I really like the artist Giger. He's the guy that designed Alien basically, and all of the kind of interesting effects of the scenery in the film Alien. Now he does a lot of things that are kind of similar looking to this, but way better. And he has a lot of his kind of color schemes are quite like this, or he'll use like a sort of a greenish kind of tinge to it. So I was quite tempted to use a greenish color, but I'm going for the effect of like rusted metal. So I'm starting with this, and then later I'm going to do some dry brushing again with silver. So have a look at this with just the orange added, and then I'll show you what it looks like with the silver dry brushed as well. So here you go. So can you see it now looks a lot more like the whole thing is made of metal, and I really like this effect. It's basically the same again, you're just using hardly any silver on your brush and just dragging it over the higher up surfaces. And yeah, I really like this effect of trying to make something look metal. Now if you think back to the beginning when I put all my parts on, some of the parts were metal, But a lot of them weren't, were they? They were like plastic, and quite kind of cheap coloured plastic, like white or blue or whatever. So it's quite nice to paint them all black, add the rusty colour, and then dry brush the silver colour as well. It just makes the whole thing consistent, make everything look like it's made of the same material. And I really like that. So I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to end up doing with this panel. I'll probably add it somewhere down in my studio. I quite like the way that it's turned out. It looks much better in real life than it does on my videos, is quite often the case, unfortunately. But hopefully this has given you enough of an idea of the effect you can get, and pretty quickly as well. On a previous video I took a VW Beetle toy car and I added bits and bobs to it to turn it into a Mad Max style vehicle, and I ended up kind of rusting it in a similar way to this. I'll leave a link to that video at the end of this video if you want to have a look at that. Check out my other more kind of serious sculpting videos if you get a chance. It's mainly creatures from movies, like I say, things like Gremlins and that kind of thing. Basically, the weirder the creature, the more I want to make it. Hopefully this video has inspired some of you to go out and have a go at making one of these panels for yourself. Like I say, you could literally use any kind of materials to do this. You're just looking for texture really, and any colour scheme of your choice. Check out my other videos for more crafting inspiration, and hit subscribe to see any videos that I post up in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.